Good afternoon. How are you?
How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good, doing good. How was your week?
Mm, okay. That's
Okay,
okay. hmm
okay, okay. Do you have any questions for me before we get started?
I don't think I have any nothing concrete per se, just lots of general stuff that I feel like I'm just wondering but haven't gotten to in the literature probably, you know.
Okay, okay, got you. I did go over your buy box and your goal sheets, and I
Mhm.
sent the email this morning. I'm not sure if you got it. It was like, yeah, this morning sometime. Just kind of like a summary recap of the things that you sent me and kind of what we're going over today. Did you get the email?
I saw that it was there and skimmed it, but I didn't give a whole lot of depth to it, at least not yet.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Let me see. I'm going to share this really quick. I want to go over your goals and buy box really quickly before we
Okay.
get started on module two. And everything looks really good. How did you feel about creating your goals? I know at first you were like you wasn't really sure. How did you feel about creating them and then after you've kind of set them out for yourself?
I still feel like I'm not 100% sure, but I was like, it's just paper. Like if
Yeah.
you need to make an adjustment later, like you can just edit it. So once I kind of absorbed that, I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's a great starting point. Obviously, it's not set in stone, but
hmm
as you go along your journey, you definitely can make the adjustments. But overall, everything looked really, really good. I would put a time frame on your long-term goal. I know you have
Okay.
here 4 properties, but when we think about SMART goals, I think it would help in terms of focus and direction if you put a time frame, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or by the time I'm a certain age. That would definitely help focus in and fine tune that goal just a little bit more, which obviously you have for the intermediate goal, which is 90 days, which is closing on your first investment property in DeKalb County. So that was a really great SMART goal there. I see you have your establish your LLC, some of the things here. Did you get a chance to look over the foreclosure lists?
I did.
It's
It
a
was a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And next week, I'm going to, not this week, but next week, we're going to go over that
Okay.
because it's for the entire state of Georgia. And so, what you would do, now that you're very clear on your buy box, is you would go and I'll show you how to just pull out DeKalb County. And literally, what I do is I create a filter, pull out the county because I just do right now, I'm just focused on Chatham County, Effingham County,
Mhm.
and the surrounding counties where I am. I literally filter those out, cut them, paste them on another sheet
Got it. Okay.
to kind of block out the noise of the other stuff.
Okay.
And then you have a working list from that. But I'll show you how I do that because I sent you the raw list, which is like all the data. But we
hmm
really don't need all that when we're working the list. We just really need their name, their address, the county, and their phone number. All that other information is great information, don't get me wrong. And I'll show you, the importance of that information, especially when it has the foreclosure attorney on there. It'll have, what type of mortgage is it? What's the value of the home? So those things, that information is important. But when you're first looking at it, it can be overwhelming. But we'll fine tune that by pulling out only what you need and then focusing and directing our attention towards that. So we'll
Okay.
look at that next week and then different ways to market. But I first wanted to go over finding deals first before we looked at that because that is a way of finding deals. Let's see, Section 8 education, you had a deadline of 10/21. Were you able to find some information on Section 8?
No, I was looking earlier today, but I'm not finished.
Okay.
Well, I
And
think I found like some arenas, but just need to kind of double down and get some clarity on what's out there, make sure it's updated.
okay, awesome. And what about calculating your financial freedom number?
So I re-looked at my budget. So that was step one. But I haven't set up the one, two, and three. So I'm a little behind.
That's okay. That's okay. At least you have something to work towards. And now you have this sheet when you do get behind, like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? And
hmm
I would definitely encourage you to maybe once a week. evaluate where you are. Look at your
Okay.
goals. Be like, okay, where am I in terms of where I say I wanted to be, and just kind of do some milestone celebration of some small things. And if there's some things you're like, oh, I need to get back on track with that, maybe once a week, just kind of pick a down day. And because I do my weekly planning one day out the week, so that maybe for your weekly planning in terms of how much time you're going to spend on your real estate investment business, you can look at your goals and see where you are and create action plans for the week for yourself.
Okay.
Were you able to decide or determine how much time you want to commit to your real estate investing business per week, like a time schedule?
Yeah, my plan is to do 4 hours, so to do 2 2-hour blocks
4 hours a
um
day or a week?
a week.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yep. Yep. So do 4 hours total per week, and I'll just have to be intentional on what day that's going to be because my schedule is pretty active. So it's
Okay.
gonna be a block that I kind of have to move around.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, and we're going to look at your buy box, which looks really good, looks attainable. Definitely, it's realistic. The only thing that I would adjust
Hmm.
is the purchase price range.
Okay.
Is very low in terms of
Hmm.
home values in DeKalb County. I don't know if you ever looked that up, but the average home price in DeKalb County is about 340,
Hmm.
and purchase price home price is selling anywhere from 350 to 370. So I would definitely make the adjustments with that. Now, not to say that you can't find anything, but just know if you're getting something for 100 and 150,000, that rehab budget gonna be a lot higher.
Okay.
Because with 20,000, you're looking at a very light lipstick, small rehab, right? And so that's maybe paint, maybe some carpet, flooring type of thing. Nothing too crazy. So with a $20,000 budget, your purchase price is going to be a lot higher. So that's just to kind of adjust your expectations there when you're looking for a property. And yeah, so everything else looks pretty good. And this is going to come in handy for what we're talking about today and to start getting the deal funnel going in terms of finding deals. All right, let's close that. Close all my stuff. Stop share. All right, so let's share advance. Mm-mm. And again, sorry about last week. I thought I was gonna be able to adjust to the times difference, and it was
Yeah, it's a big leap. Yeah.
I was fuzzy. I'm still foggy, but it was like, okay, I can't do this. I really was optimistic about setting my clock, but it was a lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And then they had me working night shifts. So I was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which I don't do. So it was definitely an adjustment.
No problem.
Yeah. All right. Let's make this a little bigger here. All right. I'm gonna close this and move this. Okay. Welcome to Deal Flow and how to find your first investment property, finding good deals. And today we are going to do a recap, which we've already done with your next step with your buy box and your goals, how to research and what to look for in your market. And but your buy box, you're very clear about, okay, DeKalb County, but it's a pretty big county. So just kind of
Hmm.
doing some more fine tuning that research. But you did a great job in narrowing that down because it's not like, oh, I'm looking at the whole state of Georgia. What you can see that can be a lot. So narrowing it down to the county is really good. And so just to do more research and how to do that, I'm going to share with you the deal flow funnel and how to find deals to get to the closing table, where to source these deals. We're not going to do analyzing the numbers today, but we will get to that. That would be too much in one
Okay.
call there. Verify any assumptions and deciding to make an offer. But the main focus is going to be finding a good deal. And so when you study your neighborhoods, you want to study them basically the things that match your buy box. You're looking for job growth, you're looking for rental demand, what the vacancies are, and what people are looking for in terms of amenities. What's important to people? Is it a garage? Is it a pool? Just things that you're seeing in the market. And when you start looking at the market, you will start getting more of a better idea of what is selling, what is renting, because you want to do rentals. So have an idea. Do they want granite countertops? Do they want white cabinets, blue cabinets, who knows? But looking and researching your market in DeKalb County, you will start to get a feel of what people are looking for. And you can use tools like, and these are free tools, Zillow and Redfin. Rentometer is one of my favorite tools to use to determine market rents and what rents are going for. They do have a paid version, but I always use the free version of it, but it may cap you out. But I just use a different email. City Data, city-data.com is a really good website in terms of looking up the market, looking at crime, looking at demographics, looking at average pay that people make in that area, looking at the school district. That is a really probably a one-stop shop when it comes to looking like market data and having an understanding of the individuals who are staying in these neighborhoods, because these are the people they're pretty much your clients. So doing that research is very important, and it just encourages you to narrow it down, which narrowing it down to DeKalb County is sufficient enough. But just start looking at the different cities within the counties and seeing where you want to look for deals. But you can definitely easily go to Zillow and type in DeKalb County, put in your metrics, which is your buy box metrics, which is the 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, and square footage. And you can start looking to see what is out there. Now, the real estate deal funnel, what is it? In brief, the funnel can be summed up as a funnel of investment opportunities coming through to your business. The larger the funnel at the top, the more can come out at the end. In this case, closing on more deals. You want to create marketing systems that consistently generate leads that eventually turn into deals. Marketing systems are basically the top of what's called the real estate deal funnel. So here is the definition that will help you better understand what it is. And so step one is your leads, your lead generations, like foreclosures, on market deals, off market deals, vacant properties, tired landlords, driving for dollars, which we'll all go into more details. But basically, where are your leads going to be coming from? And you want to get obviously as many leads coming through that funnel as possible, because real estate investing is a numbers game. You're probably going to analyze and look at 100 properties just to close one. But again, is volume, is consistency, is numbers. So how to get those deals coming through is the most important step in closing on your next deal. And then having, a way to be able to market to these deals, whether you're going to call or you're going to send out letters, networking events, doing ads, having a strategy for, okay, once you get the leads in, how are you going to market to them is important. And then having a system to be able to track this. And I don't know if you ever heard of a CRM. It's,
Mm,
I'm sorry,
like kinda. I'm like familiar.
what do you do for a living?
Victim services.
Victim services?
Hmm.
Okay. I'm sure probably in your profession you have a way to track and your clients or the people that you serve that comes through. And that's basically what a CRM is. Not unique to real estate investing. It's all businesses have a way to track their clients, their customers, or the people they serve. And you want to do the same thing in real estate investing. Having a way to track these leads. And I'll give you a couple of tools to help you during this process as well, tracking the leads. But whether it's using Excel or they have real estate CRM systems that you can pay for. PropStream is a good one, and that's the one I was telling you about where you can actually get lead list like vacant, tired landlord, bankruptcy, divorce leads, estate leads, so many leads that you can actually generate from PropStream. I believe PropStream is like $99 a month, but it also has a built-in CRM, which is good. And another CRM that I use is REI Reply, which they have a system for you to text and cold call built into their CRM, as well as creating free landing pages and websites for your business. So, just a few options there for you to explore. I think there's another one people use called Podio, Podio, but some things for you to consider. Step two is the initial screening and viewing. So, a promising lead you want to visit or evaluate in more depth. And so as leads are coming in, you want to ask yourself, does it fit your buy box? Because you're going to get a lot of things coming in. That's why it's very important to have that buy box established because you're not going to be wasting too much of your time. If it doesn't fit your buy box, you just keep it moving. Then you want to know, okay, is the seller motivated? This is so very important because this helps you determine whether there's something you want to pursue or not pursue because you don't want to have your time wasted or the seller's time wasted. Some people aren't motivated, especially when you're dealing with on-market deals. People that are selling their homes for retail, what they want, and that's perfectly fine. But how do we find the motivation there, especially when we're looking to get a deal on a property, getting it undervalued? We're investors, right? And so we want to get something undervalued so we can add value to it and then be able to make money from it. That's the name of the game. And so, how do you determine motivation? One of the first things you do when you're talking to a seller, you got a lead come in, is why are you selling? How soon do you need to sell? And then you want to visit the property for further evaluation. So you got a deal that comes in, a lead that comes in, it looks promising, and you make an appointment to go look at the property. Step three is the deal analysis. Again, we'll go more into depth with that, but just a surface level understanding when we call the back of the napkin running the numbers. And if you're doing a fix and flip, we're looking at what is called the MAO, the maximum allowable offer. Don't worry, you're going to hear this again. I'm just introducing it to you now because one of the things I discovered when I first started investing in real estate is that real estate has its own language. And you would go to these networking events, and I would go to these network events, and people were just using lingo, and I'm like, what are they talking about? And so I want to start introducing you to these terms so when you are in these rooms, it won't feel foreign to you, but you will hear mail a lot. And it just stands for what's the maximum allowable offer that you're going to make to a seller? Not your first offer, but the most you're willing to pay, and your numbers still work. And that calculation is the ARV, which is your at the repair value, times 70% minus your repair costs. Again, we'll go more in detail with that, but just an introduction. And for rentals, there's a 1% rule, which is a little outdated. Home values are far more than they are now, but it's essentially saying, can you get at least 1% of the purchase price for rent? So if the house is 100,000, can you at least get $1,000 for rent for that particular property? But again, I'll show you the back of the napkin where we just essentially look at the income, we look at the expenses, and we subtract the expenses from the income to give us our net operating income. And then we subtract our whatever our debt payment is and to determine what our cash flow is. And on your buy box, you put $300 to $500, which is a great metric. And so when you're running your numbers and you're not getting that 15% return on investment, that 10 to 15% return on investment, or you're not getting at least $300 for the cash flow, you're like, okay, I'm moving on. Now, say for instance, it's 299 or 250 for the cash flow. You may not necessarily discard that, but you may look at say, okay, how can I make this work? If it's not hitting your 10 to 15% return on investment, the question then becomes, well, what will make this work? Will it be a lower purchase price? Will it be less in closing costs, etc.? So just because something don't necessarily fit your buy box, the next thing to ask yourself is, okay, what will? And it very well may be a lower price, asking price. And that's where the negotiation comes into place. And then we have step four is making the offer and negotiating. And I gave you a book to read is Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss, and that goes into hostage situations, negotiating tactics, but these negotiation tactics can very well, and I have to find that video. I'll send it to you on how and it's an interview with Chris Voss and some other real estate investors, and how you can use the techniques in his book to negotiate for real estate investing. And then we have closing a deal. Because obviously, when you run your numbers, you find that it fits your buy box. You go look at the property, you've done your assessment, you negotiate, they agree. Now we're going to get to the closing table. And what's an acceptable offer that you actually purchase? You do your due diligence, you inspect the property, you verify the title, finalize the financing, negotiating terms with your lenders, attorneys, and hard money lenders, if that's the case, in terms of different ways you're going to finance the deal. And that's essentially your real estate journey from start to finish. Leads, screening, deal analysis, making an offer, closing the deal. Again, really that simple. Is it always easy? No, but it really is this simple. And so this is what that funnel looks like in real time. So you see here the larger top at the top. So you have all these leads coming in, depending on where you generated these leads, whether it's from direct mail, sending out postcards, sending out letters, calling, driving for dollars, etc. Foreclosures, all that. Leads are coming in from Zillow, from the online sites are coming in. And then as they're coming through the funnel, you want to assess, okay, does it meet my buy box? Is the seller motivated? What is the motivation? Why are they selling? Then we're going through the funnel, we get to, okay, they check the boxes. Now we want to run our numbers. And once we run our numbers, if the numbers check, then we want to look at the property, right? So everything looks good. We make the appointment, go look at the property. Now we want to make an offer, right? Submitting our LOI. LOI just means letter of intent. If you're working with the agent, they'll be the ones that submit the offer. If you're not working with the agent, then you submit your own offer, right? And then we get down to, okay, your offer is accepted. Now we're doing the due diligence, which is three types of due diligence, which is the property where you will have a contractor walk with you, because I'm going to show you how to run numbers to get an idea and do your repair estimates. But ultimately, before you close, you'll have a contractor come and verify those numbers that you have. So you don't have to be an expert in the numbers, but you do want to have a rough idea when you're looking at a property, roughly what the estimation is going to be for your market. Your financial, which is whatever financing that you're going to use, whether it's creative financing or traditional, conventional, whatever your financing is going to do, you're going to do the due diligence on that. And then you have legal, which Georgia is a attorney closed state. So usually when I'm teaching, I say a closing agent, but every state is different. So it's either a title company or an attorney. So in Georgia, we use attorneys to close. And then you close on the deal. But this is a visual of what that process, or what this entire process looks like. And as you can see, finding deals is the most important in getting those leads. So 100 leads, you may go through 100 leads just to get one deal, because as you can see, things are being filtered out as we go down the real estate deal funnel. So, where do we find motivated sellers? Motivated sellers are people who are a need to sell and not a want to sell. And this is how you're going to get deals that are undervalued. And these sellers includes pre-foreclosure, which is the list I sent you. It's called pre-foreclosure because in the state of Georgia, Georgia is a non-judicial state, which means that the lender does not have to take the owner to court. They basically, after 90 days of being default, they then have to put an ad in the paper saying, I'm going to foreclose in 30 days. So that 30-day period is called pre-foreclosure. After the 30 days is going to be, the announcement, then it's going to sell on the auction step, which is the first Tuesday of every month. But our approach is, and I'll get more into that in more in detail, but our approach is to get to them before they get to the foreclosure steps, because obviously at the foreclosure step, you're going to have to pay cash up front. And you're also competing with hedge fund
Yeah.
big companies, and they're dropping a lot of money on
Hmm.
the property. So we want to get to the seller before it gets to the auction step. And so that's our strategy, and that's what I'll show you more in depth next week. Divorce, inheritance, sale, owners who want to liquidate property fast. That's the motivation to get something undervalued. Estate, probate, inheritance, sale when someone passes away. Maybe the inheritance, people that inherit the property don't want anything to do with it, or they don't understand probate. But that is an approach. Some people base their entire business just on probate. Just understand that it is a process. Tired landlords, maybe they own the property for 10, 15 years and they've been dealing with tenants and they don't want to deal with it anymore. That's a motivation. They may be motivated to sell. Bankruptcy leads, expired listings, listings that were on the MLS and they did not sell. That's motivation, right? It's like, oh, I done tried to sell my property for whatever the price may have been and it didn't sell. You can market to these leads to offer them a deal that works for you and the person. Tax liens here in Georgia, same thing, kind of like with the foreclosures, you can get to them before it gets to the auction steps. And you may have people that need to move really quickly. And, maybe they got a new job and they don't want to have two mortgages. So these are the motivation. This is how creative finance work. This is how you're able to get something undervalued and get things at a deal is because there's a motivation. That's why I always ask when you're talking to a seller, the first question I ask, oh, why are you selling? Right? Especially if you don't know what the background is, I always ask, why are you selling? And then finding ways to um, market to these sellers. And I talked about it a little earlier. You can do direct mail marketing where you can send letters, postcards, or to the owners of distressed property. You can call them. You can call them yourself. You can hire someone to do the calls for you, but either way, you can call and you get the data from PropStream and Batch Leads and they call this skip tracing. So that first list I sent you a foreclosure was just the raw data from the website that we use.
Hmm.
Then we have to pay someone to skip trace, and all they're doing is like you remember back in the day, the reverse address lookup. That's essentially what that is. And the numbers are they may not be so it's public information. So the number may be right, it may be wrong, but you basically go through and you call the numbers and see if you can get someone on the phone. Again, we got online platforms. You can look for properties on Zillow for sale by owner. That's a great place to start because you can go directly to the owner. You have to go through an agent. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. You can find opportunities on these sites, especially if for rent. Because now you're dealing with the landlord and they're looking for someone to rent. They may be willing to sell. They may be at a point where they don't want to deal anymore. So you can make them offer even though it's for rent. Driving for dollars is another way where you just go around looking in different neighborhoods, looking for vacant properties, looking for rundown properties, or looking for maybe the not so good looking property in the best looking neighborhood. Networking and referrals, going to the networking events, joining the real estate investment, the RIA, the local RIA that I told you about in Atlanta, with gosh, what's her name? Justin and Christina.
Okay.
They own the RIA in Atlanta. County records, you can go on county records. That's how you can pull the sheriff's sales because they put the list up every month. They don't put the foreclosure list, but the tax liens list, you can get that off the county website and market from that list. All right. So,
Question for you.
sure.
if you know. So I have gone to like a county auction for liens and foreclosure because I just wanted to know what it was looking like.
Yeah.
And what I so I went online, I registered, I pulled the list, I looked it up online because I was like, well, what is, so I kind of, I don't want to say I did the process, but I did a process.
Hmm.
So I guess what was interesting and kind of what I didn't understand is there would be properties that are on there that are like the tax lien, for example. The tax lien itself would be for $10,000.
Hmm.
But then at auction, it would go for like, I don't know, say like 150.
100,000. Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, so then I don't understand that math. How does
Okay,
that work?
I'm going to explain it to you. This is what's happening. So for Georgia, well, how the tax lien, have you heard of the right of redemption? Are you familiar with that?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Oh, I think so, but tell me anyway. Let me make
Yeah.
sure I got it.
So the right of redemption. So basically, in Georgia, we talk about Georgia in Georgia. In Georgia, when you're doing a tax lien and you're purchasing a tax deed, you're not purchasing the property. You're
Right.
basically getting a tax deed, which means that because the taxes haven't been paid, you're paying the taxes on behalf of the person that's buying that is the owner of the house. The owner has a year and a day to pay their taxes. So they not only have to pay their back taxes, they also have to pay what you paid for it. So they have to pay you the difference that you paid. So they're 10,000 plus if you paid 100,000, now 90,000 plus 20%. So
Okay.
the reason, and see, when they doing 100,000, 200,000, these are hedge fund companies where they pool the money of other investors to be able to put this amount on there. The reason they're doing it that way is to pretty much prevent the owner from ever coming back to purchase that property. Because if they didn't have the 10,000, they're definitely not going to have
Right.
100,000. So it's a strategy to pretty much prevent them from coming back a year and a day and catching up their taxes. But that's normally how that would work. If it's 10,000, say for instance you purchased it for 10,000, they would have to pay the 10,000 in back taxes, pay you 20%, and then they can keep their property. So they overshoot to prevent them from ever coming back to being able to get the property. But our strategy is get to them before it even get to the auction is you make them a deal, you make them an offer, say, hey, I see that you're behind on your taxes. Would you be interested in selling it? We will pay your back taxes and we will make you an offer for the property so you're not losing your property and you can walk away with something in your pocket.
I
And
see.
so you pretty much make the offer, you close the deal before it even gets to the auction step. Same thing with the foreclosures. We'll bring you'll bring your mortgage current. And that's
Hmm.
what you can offer them in terms of the purchase price. If there's equity in the property, you can make them offer for the equity or negotiate, just depend on the circumstance. Some people, especially those who purchased their properties during the pandemic and the interest rates were so low, but most people couldn't afford it. Especially when property taxes and insurance went up, they thought their mortgage was fixed. And principal interest is fixed, but tax and insurance isn't. So some
Hmm.
people were already at their top when they
Hmm.
purchased it. And so if they're behind, that's really not a lot of time in between when they bought it to now. So it may or may not be equity in the property, but you can still negotiate depending on what value is in the property at that time. But again, getting to them before the actual auction. That's the key to avoid having to compete with those big hedge funds, those big companies that are now on the auction. Because back in the day, they didn't used to be at these auctions, but now they are. So it pretty much cuts out the small investor, basically.
Okay. And then I guess kind of a follow-up would be do what's your perspective on, I guess, like pros or cons when a tenant is in the property? So, because I could imagine that there would be instances like if there's a landlord and they're tired, but they're a landlord. So it's like they already have a tenant in the property in terms of just taking over for the landlord and keeping that tenant or not. Like, are there, how would one kind of, I guess, figure out what's the best move for that?
Yeah, and I will say when I first started investing, I was of the mindset like, oh, I don't want nothing to do with anybody being in the property. But as I advanced along in my journey, it what you would do basically if you, because for me, it doesn't matter. Now, if it's a foreclosure, because they'll have that, you'll have someone be like, well, can I stay in the property? No, you wasn't paying your mortgage. Why? You're not gonna pay me.
Right.
Like you have a pattern, and not to be mean or malicious, because something could have happened. They could have lost a job.
For
Whatever
sure.
the reason is, that reason is still there. So I'm
Hmm.
going to put myself in a circumstance where I'm now your landlord. It's possible, there's a higher chance that you're not going to pay me as well. But I've had in one circumstance, one of my properties, the lady was asking could she stay in there a month, and we negotiated that because she wanted her son to finish school. So what we did was we wrote up an agreement to say, hey, you will be vacating at this time after closing. If not, this is what you're going to pay per day until you move out. And see, we still had money that we were going to pay her at the end of the rehab. So that would have been taken away out of her side of the sale. So that was the motivation. So it just depends circumstance by circumstance. If you don't feel comfortable with it, then don't do it. But in that situation with a foreclosure, but if it's a landlord, what you do is you would get the rent roll. Sorry, someone is forgot to put this on thing. So when you're dealing with a situation and there's a tenant involved, you want to get what is called the rent roll, which is the history of them paying the rent. You will figure out what their security deposit is and make
Hmm.
sure that the landlord passed that information on to you. And also their lease agreement. What is the agreement? When does their lease end? Because it may be a circumstance where they only got 1 month left in their contract and you have to honor that. Or they may be on a, because you may see something that be like, oh, they're on a month to month. That's good because you only have to give them 30 days to vacate. So it really, you see how it just depends on
Okay.
where the tenant is in the circumstance. If they're good paying tenants, I sure would keep them. Like if you have a history, they've been paying on time, and I have their information, I will keep them. But if they don't, I would definitely say, hey, you need to make sure that tenant is vacated before we get to closing.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just depends on the circumstance.
Cool.
Um, so I'm going to go over 12 ways to find leads for your next deal and create your real estate deal funnel. Um, and the reality is you can't close on a deal without leads. So this is very important to be able to master this part of the real estate deal funnel. One of my favorites, low cost, budget friendly ways to find leads is driving for dollars. Just get in your car, regularly drive through your neighborhoods that you're interested in, and look for signs of distress. Again, whether it's an overgrown, let's like in this picture, overgrown lawn, maybe you see a code enforcement sign on the door, boarded up windows, vacant properties, for sale by owner signs, maybe even for rent signs. Again, you can shoot your shot. When you find something, a property that you're interested in, you can write down the address, skip trace the owner. You can search the county records and call the owner, or you can send a postcard, just depending up to you. Usually, what I do is I have a drive for dollar bag in my car, and I have like a flyer in there. I have my business card in there, and I will go around. And I also have my business card. I went to Amazon and got double-sided magnets, stickers on my cards, and I'll stick it to their mailbox because you can't put anything in anybody's mailbox. That's a federal crime. And so, but I will stick my business card on the mailbox, or I would throw, you know how the paper back in the day used to come in little bags.
Mm.
I'll put, and I got those from Amazon too, the little plastic door hanger bags.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I would put my flyer and my business card inside the door hanger bag and throw it and put it on the porch. I'm not, just depending on how you feel in terms of comfort level with knocking on a door, that's completely up to you. I'm not a fan, but I have knocked on doors before, but it's usually when I'm with someone, like me and someone else. I would just do it by myself. So again, just on your comfort level, how you feel, you can knock on the door, or you can leave behind some type of literature. But again, you can use that deal check app to kind of see um what the numbers are looking like in that neighborhood. I use Google. So what I'll do is use the Google app. I'll save it. I'll create a playlist and I'll save it. And so that makes it easier for you to kind of get a lay of the land and then go back and do your research. Because the thing is, you want in tax records, you can find whoever's paying taxes. That's who you would send your marketing information to. Or when you do your reverse address lookup to get the phone number, that's who you would market to. Now, when you're doing skip tracing, you can do batch. Batch just means you take a whole bunch of numbers like that big Georgia foreclosure list, and you have someone skip trace it.
Mhm.
I have a couple of resources that I use for that, and I can send it to you. I have one person on Fiverr that does it for me. I think he'll do like 1,500 for like $5 or something. It's really low. Um, there's also a site that
Okay.
I use, is a site that I use called Ben Verified. This is good for a single skip trace. So say for instance, you did a neighborhood, you found 5 houses. You can easily just type in the address and they'll give you the information. While you're in the coaching program, I can give you access to my account and you can start looking up addresses and getting the information, kind of get in the practice of that. So I'll give you my login and password, but you definitely want to look into something like that for yourself after the program. But for now, you can use my login. But that's for a
Okay.
single skip trace. Login, password. And then I'll send you my Fiverr person for if you have a huge batch, if it's tax liens or you have a huge list, some type of way you got a list and you want to
Hmm.
get the information, you want to do a batch skip trace.
Mm. Okay.
And again, you can make it fun. You can, those 2 hours of education, the things that you do in those 2 hours, you can get in your car, you can listen to your podcast, you can listen to the YouTube channels, the bigger pockets, YouTube while you're driving. So just make it fun. Like, do you work from home or you go to work?
I'm hybrid.
Okay. So maybe on those days that you're driving to work, maybe you can swing some corners as
Yeah.
you're driving, and just start because after a while you're going to automatically be in the habit of just when you're driving, just be like looking for opportunities. So just kind of get in the habit of that. And again, you can call if this says for rent, you see a for rent sign, give them a call, shoot your shot. Sometimes the landlords, they're tired and they may be willing to sell, but they're like, well, they don't feel like doing the repairs or any rehab. And if you're able to create a solution like, hey, I'll take it as is, you never know. You may stumble on a great opportunity. Pro tip, you can also pay someone to drive for dollars, earn and learn. Find college students or someone that wants to get into real estate but don't know how. You can pay someone basically, and they call this a bird dog program. So the bird dog program is they drive for dollars. They basically, based on your buy box, your criteria, you tell them what you're looking for. They'll drive, they'll send you the pictures. You'll tell them, hey, I want front back pictures. They'll get the county information. They'll get as much information about the owner as possible. They'll send the information to you. You do your analysis. If you close on the deal, you can offer them $500 to $1,000. Great program. And I'll send you my website because I created a bird dog program and you can see how I set mine up, but you can set up your own bird dog program where you just pay someone to look for properties for you. So let's see my website, Queens Buyout List, and see how I have mine set up. Next, we have investor-friendly agents. You want to find agents who specialize in investment properties. Um, Ideally, an agent that is an investor themselves, that because they understand the process and they have access to MLS. They have access to the MLS as well as those expired listings that I'm talking about. They can see you the list. And what you can do is, especially as an investor and you're doing something creative, you could just, long as you let them know that, hey, if I can pay your commission, I always leave with that. If I can get your commission paid, would the owner be interested in creative finances? Or if they give you the expired list and you say, hey, I'll pay you a commission or I'll pay you a fee or something if I get a property as a result of the information that you are feeding me. So you want to start creating and establishing a relationship with an investor friendly agent. Most of my deals, I haven't used agents to buy my properties. You don't need an agent to buy a property, but if you want to hire an agent, you can. You just know that you're going to pay their commission, or the seller is going to pay um the seller is going to pay their commission, but just either way, just know, and you just really factor that into your numbers. I'm not opposed to using an agent. My last property I used an agent, but just know you don't have, because I know some people think they have to have an agent to buy a property, and you don't. I can send you my purchase and sale agreement, which is in the Google Drive. You just basically have that agreement, you send it to the attorney, and everything is done for you legally the way it needs to be done, especially if you're looking at off-market deals, because if it's off-market deal, there's no agent involved. So you'll have the paperwork and contract you need to be able to close with someone if there's no agent involved. Online resources like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin. I highly, highly encourage you when we get off the call today to set up your alerts. I don't know if you already have that set up, but go to Zillow's, create an account, put in your criteria, DeKalb County, all your buy box criteria, and that way you're getting leads sent directly to your inbox. And you can also search for properties that are for sale by owner and contact the sellers directly. Um, Again, to find these deals on the website, focus on motivation, right? When I talked about the motivation for people to sell, I ideally look for average days on market in my area. And I looked up DeKalb County, average days on market is about 40 days. So what I do is in my filter, I look for properties that have been on, I filter it. I want properties that have been on the market 30 days or more, because those people are a little bit more motivated than the ones who put on day one. So 30 days gone by, they may be willing to drop their price. There's some school of thought that says, hey, if I'm the first one to make an offer, I'm more likely to get the deal, but it really just depends on you. I personally, again, looking for the motivation. My criteria, I'm looking for properties that have been on at least 30 days or more, because you got to think the MLS or the online websites highly competitive. It's not just you as an investor. There's other investors. There's also regular homeowners that are looking for properties there. So the way to kind of skirt that or kind of get away from the herd for on market deals is to filter that where you're looking for properties that have been on the market for 30 days or more. Again, those expired listings, though, when you see properties that have been taken off and putting back on, that's kind of like a sign like, oh, what's going on? Especially when it says back on market, because apparently something fell through. Again,
Hmm.
motivation. The more motivated they are, the better. Homes that have been repeatedly relisted from different brokers. Again, the motivation. You can even put in fixer uppers as is. When you go to Zillow, you can type in your keyword search, put that in there, and you'll get things that come up that may um, be something where you can get a really good deal. Networking. This is probably the top number one ways to get deals coming into your deal funnel, and you can actually meet the real estate investor agent at these networking events. Your net worth is tied to your network. I've been able to find properties. I've been able to find properties and private money at the networking events that I attended. Real estate is a relationship-based business. Networking with real estate professionals will help you. It will help you build those relationships with, again, agents, brokers, investors. You can find contractors, lenders, and wholesalers. And like I said, the Atlanta RIA, they meet once a month in person. So it's a really big group, free group. But it can be salesy sometimes, but that's okay. Just know when you go in there, you're very clear about your purpose and what you're going in there for. You can say, hey, I want to go in, I want to meet 10 people, I want to get 10 business cards. That can be your focus, that can be your goal, right? And so, but networking is very powerful, but it also because I do believe the RIA, they have a DeKalb group that just meets. So they have little subgroups that meet as well as the big group that meets. So again, great way to meet other like-minded, like-driven people that can pretty much point you in the direction that you want to go in. You can find local real estate meetups on meetup.com, or joining all the, are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Definitely go to Facebook, join all the groups, all the Atlanta real estate groups, the DeKalb, you may find DeKalb real estate investing groups, all the real estate investing groups in your area. I would highly encourage you to join the groups and kind of see what's going on. But again, take it with a grain of salt because it could be a lot of information there and sometimes scammers in there. But you really
Hmm.
want to just be able to go in and kind of see, kind of get a pulse of what's going on in your area and any meetup groups. You can go to real estate conferences. You know, Atlanta. Atlanta has all types.
I know. It's a
There's
lot, actually.
there's a
Yeah.
lot. There's a lot. So maybe finding one or two that you feel comfortable with attending, that's something that can pique your interest. And again, they may be selling something, but the reality is if you can get is because they're going to add value. Most of those places, they're going to give you value. So you go for the free stuff and be like, okay, I can use that where I am. But if you want to pull the trigger and purchase something, but picking one or two conferences to go because this is a network opportunity. When I go to conferences, I'm really going to meet people. That's really what I'm going for. Right, take your business cards to these events. I highly recommend setting up a free Calendarly account. Are you familiar with Calendarly?
I am.
Yes, I recommend you setting one up for your real estate business. And so you can book one-on-one sessions with people that you meet. So you give out, you have that first meet, you give out your business card, and then afterwards, you can send them a text message. Hey, it was great meeting you. I would love to talk further about what you do and how I can add value to what you do, and vice versa. And you could just send them your calendar link. A lot of times when I'm on these Zoom calls, because find you some virtual classes and things to be a part of too. I'll be like, hi, my name is Sapphire. Here's my LinkedIn. Here's my Calendly call. I'll put that in the chat immediately. A great way to network in these spaces. Next, we have real estate investment groups. Again, what we talked about, the different groups, joining these groups. Bigger Pockets is one of the largest ones that I'm familiar with. They have their own, I don't know if you signed up for Bigger Pockets yet. Have you signed up yet?
Oh, I don't think I have. I've like looked them up and done podcasts, but I don't think I've actually just gone and signed up.
Yeah, definitely want to sign up to their website because they have all types of forums. They have forums. They have, if you're looking for investor-friendly real estate agents, they have like a tool finder for that. Again, I would definitely take advantage of the free resources that they have.
Yeah.
They do have some, I think their pro membership is paid, but they have a free tier that you can take advantage of. And their forums are very valuable in terms of asking specific questions about, and you may can find that thing about Section 8 in DeKalb County or in
Mhm.
Georgia, you may be able to find that information on Bigger Pockets, but definitely set up an account there with them. Working with a wholesaler, again, those networking events that you go to, you're going to come across wholesalers. And wholesalers are great because they specialize in your market. They find the deals. All the thing I'm telling you about, oh, drive for dollars, and then skip trace the owner, and then call them, send a card, then negotiate, get it under contract. Well, a wholesaler, if you work with a wholesaler, they do all that for you, right? They bring you the contract, they bring you the deal, obviously for a fee. But you can also join their buyers list. So when you're networking and meeting with wholesalers, hey, do you have a buyers list? Hey, put me on your buyers list because this now is a funnel that these are leads coming in directly to your inbox so you can sign up for their wholesaling deals. Um, Again, they do all the work. I always say when you're dealing with wholesalers, because most times wholesalers, what they'll do is, and I should say a good wholesaler, what they will do is they will underestimate the rehab and overestimate the value because, again, they're getting the spread. So if it's a huge spread, they're pocketing that. And most wholesalers charging away from five to $10,000. Don't be afraid to ask them, what's your fee? If they kind of like him and hawing, that's okay. But you're gonna tell me your fee or you're not because we're working together. And honestly, I don't care what their fee is as long as my numbers work. So don't take their numbers at face value. You always want to run the numbers for yourself and see what works for you. Now, if their numbers work and you're still able to get your 15% return, you're able to get the metrics that you have established for yourself, that's great. But if not, you renegotiate like, hey, can you go back to the seller or the owner and for this price, this will work. Nine times out of 10, they bump their fee up too much and they're taking a lot of money off the table for the investor. So you got to be very careful with that. But when you know how to run numbers for yourself, it's fine because you'll immediately look at them like you can't be serious. Like this is overpriced. So again, working with a good wholesaler is important. But if you find someone that can bring you the deal so you don't have to go through those steps that I talked about before, there's nothing wrong with working with a good wholesaler. And so essentially, they'll do the work, they'll get it under contract, and say, for instance, the property is valued at, I don't know, $100,000. Now the wholesaler has got it under contract for 90,000. They're selling it to you for 100,000. They get the $10,000 spread. You get the property at 100, the owner get their 90,000. Everybody is happy and they assign you the contract. There's a lot of laws now and things have changed in terms of wholesalers. So a lot of things, um, people aren't wholesaling like they used to because they're now requiring wholesalers to have licenses to sell. They're saying they're selling properties, which technically there, I mean, I guess there is, but they're not really. But they're trying to
Mhm.
impose those same laws on wholesalers. So now what they may do is something called a double closing, where the wholesaler would close in the same day they will sell the property to you. So there's other workarounds, especially as you, if you wanted to wholesale, say for instance, you get a property, but it doesn't fit your buy box. It doesn't fit what you want for your business, but it still may be a good deal. So what do you do with it? You can make money off of it. You can, you've gone to these networking events. You're now friends with other investors. Like, hey, I got this deal, came across my table. Are you interested? And you can get on the contract. You can assign that contract to them, and now you've made $5,000 to $10,000. So you still made money on a deal. And wholesaling is really that simple. You get the property under, a certain amount. And when I show you run the numbers, remember I tell you the Mayo is the ARV times 70%. A lot of
Mhm.
times wholesalers will use 60%, right? Because they want to be able to build in the spread for themselves. But again, you can get it under contract, even if it's not a good deal for you, you can still make money off of it. So that could be a strategy that you use to be able to bring in money. It's like, okay, I got cash flow, but if I get, especially if you get a good funnel coming in, you may have more deals that you can take on. That's a good problem to have because you can wholesale those deals to someone else. It may not be your main thing, but at least it is a way for you to be able to make money. Again, where do you find these wholesalers? The local meetup, Facebook groups, and networking with other investors. Next, we have the foreclosure, which I talked about a little bit earlier, the pre-foreclosures where Georgia is a non-judicial state. And so if a mortgage is 30, 60, or 90 days default, the bank can then put the notification in the newspaper, and that's where we get our list from. But the people we get our list from is called equitydepot.net. They basically pull all the ads from all the newspaper in the whole entire state and they put it in one list. So it's a lot of work that they do. And then that's how we get our list. But then we have to skip trace the list, which is that second list that I sent you with the phone numbers. And then we pull out the Cab County. Then you decide how you want to market to them. And so basically you want to contact them ahead of time, the owner that's in distress before it gets to the foreclosure steps. And it creates a win-win scenario. And how I handle my foreclosures is I go in with the intent and purpose to help them. It's not just, oh, I'm just gonna buy your property because you're losing. I'm not gonna take advantage of them. It's literally when I call, how can I help? Do you want to save your property or do you want to sell your property? Because some people they just may lack information and resources. And I'd be like, oh, well, did you call housing, the Housing Authority Fund where they provide up to $50,000 for people that are behind if they meet certain criteria. So I provide all the information, but some people are in circumstances where is no way, even if you were able to stop the foreclosure, when it's time to pay it again, they're still not in a position to keep the property. And so that circumstance, I'm like, well, Get something out of it. Don't let them just take your property. And that's when I negotiate the offer. But I do lead with how can I help? And we have a pre-foreclosure ebook that we send to people because now we're creating a relationship with them. Right. My one of my properties that I got, I was able to help the lady save the property. It's that six-figure flip I talked about in my mastermind. The first time I was actually able to help her and she tried to save it, but 3 months later, she still did not have a job. She still wasn't in a position. So now she's at a point where it's like, I don't want to lose it. Okay, I can make you an offer. I made her offer. She don't have the foreclosure on her record, which is good, right? We're able to bring it current. So that's going to help her credit and she's able to walk away with something versus losing her house and getting nothing. We're able to offer her $40,000, but that's only because she had equity. If there was no equity, the most you can do is say, okay, well, I can offer you money to move, maybe 500 to $1,000, just depends on the numbers. But it may be a situation where it's like you don't have the foreclosure on your record, you preserve your financial statements, and you have money to move. Whereas before you wouldn't have had that, and you would have had a foreclosure on your record, which would have made it difficult for you to rent in the first place. So it's about creating a win-win scenario. But when you get on the phone, I always say, well, how can we help? What do you want to do? Because some of them want to save. Some of them like, I'm sick of it. I'm ready to move on. So it's good to get on the phone and talk with them to kind of get an idea of what their circumstance is and their situation. And we make offer. Now, foreclosure makes for a great opportunity for subject to, where you leave the existing mortgage in place and you take over the mortgage payments. You don't assume it because assuming means you have to qualify. Subject to means in lieu of ownership. So subject to the existing finance, you leave it in place, you bring it current, you're now making those payments, but you don't have to qualify for it. So it helps them. That win-win is even though the debt is still in their name, you're making the payments every month. You're now rebuilding, restoring their credit. In addition to them not having a foreclosure on their record. And if, for instance, they want to say, hey, I want to buy another house, which obviously they're not even in a position to buy a house right now, but 3 or 4 years down the line, everything looking good, everything looking great, you're paying the mortgage on time, they may want to become a homeowner again. There's ways to be able to do that. Matter of fact, one of my properties that I bought 3 years ago, the young lady actually came back to me. She was like, "Oh, I want to buy a house, but this is still showing up that I owe." All I had to do was send the HUD statement to say that my company owns the property and is responsible for the property, and that was enough for her to apply for a mortgage.
So with the subject to, I just want to make sure I'm following. So like it would be maybe you reach out, the homeowner is in pre-foreclosure status, and they're
Mhm.
like, I wanna, is that a safe situation or a sale situation that leads to subject to?
Is it what's the option? What you said? I'm sorry, I didn't understand. You said is it
Like,
safe?
no. Is it where they're trying to save, like they want to stay in the space?
Oh, that's a
Because then
sale. That's
that's
a
a
sale.
sale.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's
So,
if they can't save it, then that's a sell option because the foreclosure is only 30 days. If they wanted to sell the property, they couldn't because underwriting takes at least 30 days. So subject to
okay.
allows for you to do a quick and fast close. You can close in like 7 days.
And then when the with the subject to, then in that situation, are they then still staying in the space
No,
while,
no,
okay,
no.
okay.
They
It's just like on paper,
no. They
they
sold.
still have ownership. Like I guess I don't get that part. Does that make sense? Because it sounds like there's also like bringing their payments up to like current and it not being on their record, I guess, because it doesn't actually become foreclosed. But how does the payments then work positively for them if at that point they've already sold it?
So they sold the property. So they no longer own the property, but they still own the debt. So a lot of times when we think about home ownership, we tend to think mortgage and ownership is the same. It's not. Mortgage is the debt on the property that you own. When you buy a property, you own the property and you took a loan out with the bank so you can buy the property. And the bank has a security lien against the property. So even when there's foreclosure, the people think, oh, the bank owned my property because I have a mortgage. No, you own the property, but if you don't pay it, they have the right to take the property back to satisfy the loan. So it's uh Pace Morby explains it like this. So if you had a credit card and you went into the grocery store and you bought groceries, right? And so they ring up your groceries, you use your credit card to pay for the groceries. Now you have the groceries in your hand. If you walked out the store and you handed your groceries to Jim that was standing outside, Jim now owns the groceries. But who owns the debt? You.
Mhm.
You still have to make those credit card payments. Now, in that situation, and we're thinking about subject to with the house, Jim is saying, okay, I'll pay the credit card it's still your debt, but I'll pay the credit card every month. So I now have ownership. The Jim has the ownership, but the debt is being taken care of by Jim, but he does not own the debt. But in
Mhm.
business, it will behoove Jim to pay the debt because if not, the groceries can be taken away in a sense, or the property
Mhm.
can be taken away. So the house that I'm sitting in right now is a foreclosure, is subject to. My company, I have the deed, I own the property. The debt is still in the owner's name. I make the payments every month, and that's how it helps their credit and how it helps rebuild them. I own it though, so I am control. I can sell it. I can do whatever I want with the property because I own the property. She no longer owns the property. She only owns the debt. I'm responsible for it.
Okay.
So debt
Okay.
and ownership is two separate things.
Okay.
Have you purchased a home before?
I have.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, you did tell me that you purchased a home. So yeah, it's essentially you own, but when you purchase your house, you own the property and you own the debt. So it seems like it's one.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have come in and do subject to, and you could have sold your property to someone, but the debt still is in your name, but they are paying the debt payments. And then when the debt payments are paid off, no one no longer owns the bank, but the ownership is still there. So in my situation and yours as an investor, we now have tenants. So the tenants are paying the mortgage. And eventually that mortgage is going to go away. But you always going to own the property and someone else is paying the mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. And if I sold the property right now, I'll pretty much pay the remaining of the debt that's owed and keep the difference. But I never had to qualify. I never had to show a check stub, a tax statement, or anything. All I did was bring it current. And so when you're closing on a property like that, you first bring it current. I'm sorry, you first close. You first buy the property, then you
Mm-hmm.
bring the foreclosure current, and then you make the payments moving forward.
Okay.
Because you don't want to bring something current that you don't own. You want to
Right.
own it first.
Right. Okay.
I met a young lady, they were investing and they didn't understand that and they bought it. They stopped the foreclosure for sure, but they didn't purchase the property first. So the owners, it was like, oh, well, it's current now. I'm gonna take it over. And it's like they didn't understand that. Well, no, I take that back. It ended up, I forget how it works. I think something happened and I forget what it was. It was a big mess, but they thought they didn't do it correctly, but they were able to resolve the issue. But you definitely want to close on it. And that's how it will work. You would close even at that closing table. You would bring the money. For example, in my situation, it was 19,000 total. I closed 19,000 at the table. The attorney then forwarded the money to the mortgage company, and I've been paying the mortgage ever since. And I have the deed. But we'll go more into that when we talk about different ways to finance the funding part of find, fund, and close.
Okay.
Yep. Then we have probate. This is a way to find deals, property left behind by a deceased person. If the deceased person was the sole owner of the real estate property when they died and they left no will, the property has to go through probate. Actually, even if they did leave a will, it still has to go through probate if the property is not in some type of land trust. So it just makes it easier to go through probate if there's a will. Because if there's a will, then the judge can offer or issue an executor deed. And now that person has the ability to say, okay, I can sell the property. If there is no will, then there's an administrative deed as assigned. But depending on how many family members are involved, that has to get sorted through probate. And that can get complicated or it can be very simple and very straightforward. But as an investor, if this is something that you want to pursue, it's important to understand probate and how it works. And again, it begins with the process of appointing an executor if they were named in the will, or if they're not, an administrator. The executor or the administrator is responsible for determining the value of the estates, paying any debts, and distributing or selling personal property, including real estate. Often, the holder of the executive of a piece of probate, such as a family member or friend, they have an incentive to sell because they may not want to live in the property. They may want nothing to do with it. And when this happens, you can see now where the motivation may come in. Like, I just want to get rid of it. I don't want to deal with it. And so that's something, and a lot of times when you, and even on that foreclosure list, you'll see something say the estate of. That lets you know that someone passed away, but they did not take the property through probate or anything, or they're just not paying the mortgage. And a lot of times, if they're not paying the mortgage, it's because they didn't take it through probate. Now it's about to foreclose. So now with that, you see motivation stacking happening. You have someone that has an estate, someone passed away, in addition to now it's about to foreclose because someone is not making the payments. Oftentimes, people don't even understand how this works, or they may not even understand that if someone passed away, if the property is only in that person's name, you have to take it through probate to get some type of control to be able to make a decision. If you don't, then you can't make any payments or you can't make any decision. And so oftentimes when you're talking to people like this, you have to provide the education of, oh, has it gone through probate? And they're gonna tell you yes or no. If they tell you no, oh, well, you want to give them the information. Okay, well, how does this work? Well, you go down to the court and it may be a fee. And you as an investor, you may be like, okay, if you want to sell and you're willing to sell to me, you may offer up paying for probate so someone
Mhm.
can have the ability to take it through the process, especially if it's very straightforward, like, oh, I'm the only child, or there's no one
Mhm.
else to contest. That could be a very short, simple, straightforward thing. You can offer to pay that, and they'll just come out of whatever you offer for the house. So
Okay.
it is important to understand that process. If it has gone through probate, that's great. So now you have an executor or an administrator that can sell the house. But if you're doing your research and you see a property and there's a name on it, that's why you want to know when you're talking to someone, is your name on the deed? Because they may be like, oh, I'm selling the house, and they may not be on the deed. Only the person on the deed can sell the house. So if it's a husband-wife situation and they're divorced and they're going back and forth, they both have to agree to sell the house. If it's only one person, great. If you see two names and you're talking to someone, you want to be clear that, hey, is the other person on board? Is the other person aware? If the person is deceased, hey, is there a probate? So these are things that you're going to start to see that's going to clue you in to ask certain questions. And different ways to find probates is you can contact, you have a probate court to get a list of probate sales. You can search online, county records, newspaper to find this information. Again, PropStream, you can create that list. There's even a list where you can create properties that are going through probate that's listed.
Have you done a probate?
No, I don't have that takes
It
a
sounds, yeah, it sounds like a niche space.
yes, like to me, I just is now I've helped people in terms of because I was like on the foreclosure list, you'll stumble on it. But and
Okay.
I've helped people to say, hey, if you haven't done this, these are the steps. So I've done that, but I haven't gone through an entire process because that's not something I actively pursue. But when I have come
Mhm.
across it, I'm like, oh, okay. This is especially foreclosure, like, oh, they passed away. You need to take it through probate. If you want to take it through probate, this is how you take it through probate. If you're willing to sell on the other end, because some of them emotionally don't even want to deal with any
Yeah.
of it. So it requires a lot of patience to navigate through that. Like I said, I'm aware of how the process works. And when I'm talking to someone, I do give the information, but that's not something that I actively pursue. But if I come across it and they're like, yeah, I want to sell and I want to take it through probate, okay, let's go. You know, but that's not a list that I actively pursue. Foreclosure is something I actively pursue. But again, if I stumble on it, I'll help the person as much as I can. And if they want to sell, because they may not want to sell, but I'm like, oh, well, this is what you do to be able to take control. I'll still give them the information.
I see.
And so then we have tax liens. Just an overview again. A tax lien is a lien imposed on real estate or personal property after the owner fails to pay or is delinquent on their taxes. Tax liens do not expire. The only way to get rid of them is to pay the amount owed or sell the property and use the proceeds to pay off the taxes. In Georgia, a tax deed will be issued when the property owner doesn't pay their taxes. So when you go to a tax sale, you're basically buying a deed. The tax deed, sometimes referred to as a redeemable deed, are connected with the auctions. So when a Georgia property owner fails to pay their taxes, the county commission may try to sell the real estate, the auction, to recoup the tax money. Individual investors can purchase the tax deed at public auction. So for non-judicial tax sales, the county commission holds the sheriff's sale or the auction on the steps of the county courthouse the first Tuesday of the month. The starting bid is usually the amount of back taxes owed. That's where they start, with the highest bidder taking ownership of that tax deed. Some counties have additional requirements, such as the buyer being in person at the auction or paying for the tax deed in full. In Georgia, when an investor purchases a tax deed, they do not immediately get possession of the property. Once the original owner is notified about the sale, they have 1 year and a day right of redemption, during which time they can pay off the tax deed plus the interest and penalties that is owed. Currently, Georgia tax lien interest is 20%. So some people make a business out of this. Again, if we took out the hedge funders, they would just, a 20% return is not a bad return if you're holding the paper,
Mhm,
but also the patience.
mhm.
Because again, you can't go to that property, you can't do anything, you can't fix it up, you can't do anything for a year. So if you're like, okay, I'm okay with that for my strategy, it's a good strategy. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll get the list and they'll research, especially if it's vacant. They'll just take their chances or whatever and just make the assumption, or again, paying way more than is owed. I've known people to start working on stuff before that year and a day, but technically you're not supposed to, because that person could
Mhm.
come, pay the taxes, pay the interest, pay the fees, and now you done did work on the property and because you don't own the property yet. So, but before hedge funders got involved, people would just make a business, just even if they did come back, oh, I made some money off of that. Um, so
Hmm. Okay.
after the 1 year redemption ends, the person who purchased the deed has a couple of options. They can hold on to the tax deed because I believe subsequently, like even after a year, your interest and fees that they have to pay go up, so you could just hold it. And I think every year it goes up by 10% in terms of what the penalty is.
Mhm.
So that's one way that people make money off of it. Or they if the original owner wants to reclaim the property during year two, they have to pay the auction price plus the 30% interest. During the third year, auction price plus 40%. So it keeps going up and up. However, if the person who purchased the tax deed is ready to see a return on investment during year two, they can force the original owner to pay all money owed or else foreclose on the property. So that's another step that you have to take. You have to foreclose on it. If the property is foreclosed on it, the owner of the tax deed will take full possession of the real estate. The majority of homeowners, they do pay again, and this is explaining why they pay so much more over what is owed, because they are essentially creating a scenario where they can't come back if they wanted to. So that answered
So
that.
after the tax lien, and then those properties would then also become a foreclosure at some point. Is that accurate?
If
Right?
if there's, say for instance, they're still in the property. and you want to get
Hmm.
ownership of the property, you have to foreclose on them. Yes.
Mm.
So it's another step that you have to take. But if there's
Mm.
no one in the property, it's just a matter of paperwork, basically.
Right.
Listing
Okay.
it, paperwork. If someone's in there, it could be a fight because now you got to put somebody out. So it's a whole thing. But I know people that have done this strategy. They typically look for properties that have just been, maybe somebody acquired the property, just they out of state, they just own it, they just pay the taxes or whatever case may be. So it's just different scenarios. But yeah, they're in it. And they're still in the property and you foreclose, now you have to
Yeah,
um
because I know I've seen that before, like on the like you can go out, I don't know what one of the websites, and it'll be like possible tenant or like known tenant. And it'll be like a note, like no trespassing, right? Like they don't want you to bother the person. But then
yeah.
I'm like, well, how do you get them out? But I guess then it was to what you're saying, it's like it's another step in the process.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Okay.
it basically, just like with a foreclosure, they would have to vacate. You give them a notice because even if you bought a property at a foreclosure, you still have to get the tenant out. You own it now,
Hmm.
and they're in there. If they refuse to leave, then you have to do the notice to vacate, which I think in Georgia is like 72 hours. You put the sign on the door, then the sheriff have to get involved, and then they put them out. So 3 days, put them out. So yeah, even with a foreclosure, same thing. You have to, if they're in it, even though there is process for you there, the sheriff can come. That's where you see the sheriff come and put everybody's stuff outside. That's what's happening. The person just
Hmm.
didn't leave even after the foreclosure. And I've had that happen where I tried to help people with the foreclosure. And you will see that with foreclosure, people can be a little detach emotionally from the process because they've been going through whatever they've been going through. And so when you're telling them, hey, they're going to foreclose you on you, they may not necessarily act expeditiously because they don't believe it's going to happen. Or they'll say, God is going to come and help me. And no shade against people that's in their religion, but they will literally wait to the last minute and then call you, be like, oh, can you help me? And you got to think, you only have 30 days, but you need at least 7, at least 14 ideally to take it through the title. You have to get the title search and everything done. So you need time. So they if they're not going to save it, then you still need time as an investor to have the close on it before the auction date. And so a lot of times they'll wait to the very last minute. And I've had that happen with a couple of people, and then they'll call me like the Monday before the Tuesday. Can you help me? I can't. And then, one lady called me crying. She was like, what's going to happen? I'm like, well, you have 72 hours to leave. And I feel bad for them, but it's like I tried to help before we got to this point. But they, especially like with the government programs and the moratorium, people just think that something's going to happen and sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So tell a family, tell friends. I always say that, tell everyone that you know that, hey, I'm a real estate investor. Um, and if you're not already doing that, get into the practice of always telling people around you because you never know. Somebody may know somebody that may know somebody, and they're like, "Oh, tomorrow she buys real estate. I don't know what she does, but she buys real estate. Maybe she'll buy it from you because these are now creating referrals for you." So you just tell everyone, "Hey, I buy real estate. If you know someone that wants to sell, they want to sell their property as is." It's beginning that conversation. You will find that your network will be one of the most valuable resources in your investing business. That's why they always say your network equals your net worth. As such, I believe that building your network should be your number one priority. Meet new people as often as you can and begin to nurture those relationships because it can be properties, it can be private money lending. Maybe you talk to someone and like, oh, I want to learn how to invest too. And maybe I don't have the time, but I have the money. So now you have a potential partnership where you're finding the deals, they're providing the funds. So tell everybody, sharing is caring. Making connections can go a very long way in this business. I remember I one time I was working, I had a contract like the one I had in Hawaii. I had one in California, and I had a trainer that was training me, and she had invited me, in addition to one of her friends, to go wine tasting in Napa Valley. During a 2-hour drive, I talked to them about real estate business and opportunities. And at the time, I actually had a foreclosure that was coming through the pipeline, but it was going to require a good bit of money to bring it current. She was $50,000 behind. This is the one that she couldn't save it. So she was $50,000 behind. And so the whole ride there, I'm telling them about it. I'm looking for private money, looking all this stuff. And by the time we arrived in Napa Valley, it's about a 2 hour drive. They both agreed to lend me $20,000 for the deal. I didn't even know these people, complete strangers. So tell everybody is the moral of the story. You never know. You never know. Again, and now it's the marketing part we talked about. Okay, we talked about where to find these deals. Direct mail marketing is a great way to find willing sellers of, and this is like for off-market deals. If you see off-market
Mhm.
opportunities, again, identifying your target area where you want to buy, which is in DeKalb County, and you can send postcards or letters. Even if you just got a list of addresses in a certain zip code and just send out mailers, you can blind send out mailers like that too. Or when you're driving for dollars, you can send out mailers to the property saying, hey, and I can send you a couple examples of some things that I've done in Canva, some letters that I've created and postcards. I just make them in Canva and send them out. When using direct mail, you create your list of motivated sellers, whatever that motivation will be, get your list. And PropStream, I always talk about PropStream, but I use PropStream for that. Divorce, vacant, out-of-state landlord, tight landlords. I don't use PropStream for foreclosure because it's a public site, but there's so much information that comes through it. Foreclosures happen so rapidly, it's not always updated in the time frame that you need it before a property will sell on a foreclosure. So we use
Mhm.
equitydepot.net for our foreclosure, but everything else, tax liens, probates, you can find those lists on probate. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and get and the key to a direct mail campaign is not just one letter. I always say when you're marketing to a seller, you want at least four touches. So four touches can be four postcards sent at different intervals. It can be a letter, a text message, a call, another letter. It can be one letter, two calls, one email. Whatever it is, you want minimally, you want four touches when you are actively pursuing a property. And that's why at the beginning I talked about is the importance of having some type of CRM so you can keep up with what you're doing, your leads, whether it's a hot lead, warm lead, cold lead, and how frequently you have contacted them because you probably gonna get no the first couple of times. And that's okay. You can chase the no is what I call it. Chase the
Okay.
no. But minimally four touches. And your letter, you can make the messaging personal. It telling about your business and about yourself. I always talk about my daughter and my granddaughter, and we have this small business that we're growing, right? And so find some type of way to make it personable for them to be like, 'cause connect, right? People work with people that they like. So finding that and adding some personal touches. Maybe it's how the card is created. Maybe if you send a letter, something that catches their eye on the envelope. Just to, these are all marketing strategies that you use. And again, I use Canva to do all of this stuff. Some people have the we buy houses fast. I know you've probably seen these signs before everywhere. You can even get them and put them in, on your car, get stickers, again, marketing to get the word out there. And you will do a simple sign like this with your number, something big. So if people driving by, they see it, they can easily contact you. Follow up, follow up, follow up. I don't know how many deals I've missed because I didn't follow up. So again, creating a system to track um, and track over time. It again, 4 to 5 to 7 touches to get the good stuff. And 100 leads can lead to one deal. If you build relationships organically and continue to stay in touch with them, you will see good deals. Because that first call may not be it, but the follow up will you'll be amazed. Um, CRM software is not necessary, but it's convenient. You can use Excel, Notion, Twilio. All these are ways that you can track and be able to follow up. And it's really about how much you follow up. You don't want to follow up too much. So being able to space it out, but also kind of getting the feel of when you're
Mhm.
talking to the person, how often you should follow up with them if they're not responding to anything. So be persistent, but not annoying. There's a fine line. Just kind of switch it up. You can do calls, you can do postcards, you can do emails, you can do text messages. Just create a system where you're minimally four touches when you begin your process. and documenting, okay, where did you find this lead and the whole, okay, where did you find the lead? When did you find it? How did you contact them? Did the numbers work? Does it check your buy box? Did you make an offer? Right. So I'll send you inside of the drive is a lead list that you can use to start looking for leads. And so consistency is key. Finding great real estate deals requires regular marketing, regular networking, and regular analysis, what we'll get into not next week, but the week after that. Staying disciplined, sticking to your buy box, and don't chase the bad deals. If it don't fit, I was about to say it must have quit, but
Know what you meant? Yes, yes.
you don't want to be a dog chasing 20 rabbits, okay?
It's so
So
funny.
I'm probably still a little delirious from I just got back last night. So
It's okay.
keep
Yes.
learning marketing trends, change, and adaptability, adapt to strategies over time. And so here's a recap: the steps you must take from a lead to an actual deal. These are also the steps we use as a guide you in the next the few weeks on negotiating, selling, running numbers, making offers, performing your due diligence, and closing the purchase. Is again, remember, lead generation. Where are you going to get the leads from, right? All these lead generations. Collect and pre-screen the leads. Pre-screen them through your buy box. Gather as much information about the seller and the property as possible. Prop stream again. You can get as much information about the property and Google the seller. You get again as much information as you can get. So when you do sit down and talk with them, you are prepared to have that conversation. Again, then making an offer, then following up if needed, and then putting the property under contract, due diligence, and closing. By employing these strategies, you'll increase your chances of finding profitable real estate investment properties. Now, the next step, I want you to choose at least 2 to 3 lead sources to find deals and begin creating a deal funnel. I want you to generate at least 100 leads in the next 30 days. So not the numbers part because we haven't gotten there yet, but I want you to find at least 100 deals in the next 30 days that fit your buy box criteria. And again, I'll make sure you get that form. It's in the drive, but I'll send it to you directly so you will have it. So you'll have that for the next 30 days. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you have a recommendation or any feedback on like the best way or place to start? Like, I don't know why, for whatever reason, the pre-foreclosure realm feels good, like intuitively. So that's what I'm like thinking. But also want to play with like some of the filters as you mentioned, like on Facebook, Zillow, Redfin, and see like what comes up.
Yes, I would recommend the foreclosure because when we pull the list next week, we will see how many are on there for DeKalb County because there may be a good bit on there for us to look at, even though the foreclosure is coming up. The sale is coming up, but we'll be doing this every month. So so as soon as
Yeah,
it comes out again, but I still want to show you so when it comes out again, we'll be like on it in real time as it's coming.
yeah.
So definitely the pre-foreclosure, the driving for dollars,
Hmm.
setting up your filter on Zillow. Like you can literally do that tonight. So
Yeah,
stuff start
yeah.
coming into your inbox. So you can quickly just those, and like you said, looking Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, looking for opportunities. Those right there are good enough to probably get you those 100 leads in the next 30 days for sure.
Okay.
And I definitely would love for you to attend at least one networking event in the next 30 days. At least one.
I'm gonna try.
Yes, at least one. I forwarded you the email from Ria. They have a couple events coming up. I'm not sure how many are in person, but they do have a couple of events on that email that I sent you for this month.
Yes. And I know we can talk a little bit more about scheduling. It would probably be better for me to talk more concretely about scheduling next week. But I know that for our like from up to this point, we had kind of scheduled for November, and we'll be kind of preparing to go into I mean, for October, and we'll be preparing to go into that November window, which is where I had some travel for the first 2 weeks. So I just want to make sure that we kind of figure out what the best step is for planning on both ends and making sure that the training is
You
still
want to
open.
schedule November next week or you want to schedule it now?
I think it'll be next week will probably be better for my
Okay.
brain.
Yeah, because
Um,
we're already scheduled for October. So
yes, so I know we're good for October, but I
yeah,
know November, my calendar gets a little like crazy, and I know we didn't meet last week, so I'm just trying to make sure we stay
yeah, for sure.
moving.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
okay, cool, cool, cool.
Alrighty. And I got several things I'm going to send to you.
Yeah, yep.
Yes.
Oh, and the
And
other question I had is at what week do we get to creative funding? Because I feel like that's also part of my block. Like, I love a good Delulu sprinkle, but I'm also like, I don't got no fun. So it's hard for me to kind of like, even with my goal, I'm like, for sure, I live in DeKalb County. I know 220 is like bare minimum for something that's where you want to be.
mhm.
Um, but I'm also like, I don't have funding. So I wind up putting myself in a more constrictive box because I don't really understand the creative funding portion yet. And that's fine. I know it's part of the curriculum.
Yeah,
But
it's
at what
fine.
week so that I can give my brain like some solace until we get there?
Yes, for sure. So I am thinking because next week we're going to look at the foreclosure list. So it would probably be the following week
Okay.
because I'm also catering this and customizing it to you specifically.
Okay.
In terms of where you are in your comfort level, and because I don't want to go too fast either, but also still you're being
No,
able to
for
get
sure.
all the content. So the call after that, which will be so which will be in November, because not the 29th, but it would be the November, which we will have to see based on your schedule.
Okay.
So whatever we are looking at for November, so whatever that first call is in November, that would be the funding conversation.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful.
Probably, um, yeah, that first week because the foreclosure list, okay, the foreclosure list won't come out to that following week, so that's good. So we'll be able to do that and then we can hop back on that list as well. In like real time as it going through. So yeah, the first November call. And keep in mind
Okay.
in real estate, you do need money, but it doesn't have to be your money. So it's okay that you may not
Yeah,
necessarily have the money. Um, it doesn't have to be your money.
for sure. For
And
sure.
once
Um,
you learn, when focus on finding the deals and getting good deals coming through the funnel. Because again, once you learn
okay.
how to find deals, the money will find you. And that's why I also want you to go to networking events because this is where you're going to find the money. You're going to find lenders, you're going to find information about different funding opportunities you may have available that you may not have considered, like a DSCR type of loan, where they basically the property qualifies the deal, not you as the individual. So if the
Mhm.
market rent is there and you can show that it's there, then you'll get approved for it. But those require 20%. And that's again, the network is important because you're not going to be in rooms where you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And you can begin to ask the questions too, as well.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
So of course, if you have any questions for me, feel free to shoot me a text or email. I'll be happy to answer them for you, and I'll send you all the things. And I'll see this video. Were you able to pull up the playlist for YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, so these videos will go in there. So if you want to,
Okay.
you can look at them. They'll be in there too for you to go back.
And what email, although right now I don't feel like I have anything that's tangibly written to you, but in general, if I were, I feel like I text you, but if I were to email you, because I know it wind up going into like crazy land,
Yeah,
what is the best email for you?
I text that to you too. Is the info at
Oh,
organized-chaos.com.
did you? Okay, you did.
Yeah, and-
Okay.
yeah. And it's the email that I sent you this morning. That's
Hmm.
the email because I sent it directly from my inbox and versus
Okay.
Wix because I was
Okay.
sending you inside of Wix. So the email this morning was directly from my inbox. So you'll see it there as well.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes. And you do have the lead list, but as things are coming in, but that's the next 30 days. So yeah, not necessarily anything to turn in by next week, but yeah. Yeah, and
Okay.
continue to work on your list, the goals that you have and the dates and the timelines for that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Thank
All
you so
righty.
much.
Thank you. See you
I'll see
next
you
week.
next time. Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.